We continue from page 83. Now that the whites had actually dominated the blacks, that actually called for me to ponder something, the components of their inside, their bone marrows as well as the medulla oblongata, what tissue composes the intestinal journey. Now that they had siphoned on the black African food from the black soils, don't you think their minds as well had become filled up with the black ideas? And soon, will they think like Africans? The outer skin remained pure white, but the inside had been fully packed up with the black materials. Mr. Rodin made a mistake and used one of the nearby bush to excuse himself. Curious to the mysteries of our white masters, I went ahead and observed his excrete, pure black, after he had been eating on black food. Why not why not his intestine had manufactured and converted such black-colored food into something pure whitish and excrete white-colored feces? That was a mysterious to be answered by God Himself, the creator of all the humankinds, the blacks and the whites. The fundamental concept here is that our European brothers are born white-colored, but slowly being assimilated into our Africanism after taking on our many black concept. The insides already filled up with the African mentality, behavior, and component, fully packed up with African blood. Talk of Africanism, that is a philosophy scholars of the coming days will deep, deeper and give detailed bits. But as for me, I will ask my people never to despise ourselves, yet we feed the giants of the world. Prove me wrong, I will give detailed part of that. I mean, where are their major imports do they come from? What is the origin of the Negroes? How about the many black Americans who lived in their white soils, but their roots are far from the black soils here in Africa? Go east and west, south and north, home is home and home is the best. Meta, who sat behind the seats, became conversant with the words like check and train. And so, he always reminded me to be careful once we arrived at Sichekereni on our way to Kimaiti, precisely at Asiombe, and all times we passed by the poster grounds at railway crossing as we go to Bungoma Center. He demanded me to look right, left, right again, make a clear determination that nothing of a coiling snake was coming forth. Then we crossed. Be cautious and be very careful once you see such a thing, he exclaimed. At times, if the white man got annoyed, he would ask me to administer some beatings. Mr. Rodin cared not to have his well-laid work plans delayed or disrupted. I had also been caned before in the same jail. For that, I had enough reasons also to retaliate, with absolute no reason to refrain and perhaps use an alternative method. I did also administer something on their behinds. I knew exactly where someone would feel some good pain in their spines, a good pain for that season. I did a perfect job. Meta, the son of Opio, had grown cruel and stubborn to understand few instructions from my lips. He will not pick my point easily whenever I talk to him or whenever I assign him some duties. One day I unleashed one stroke that left him, my friend prisoner Meta, lying flat on the ground forever. He never woke up again. He did his last stretches helplessly as he lost breath to die. He died on the spot. I came to my sense. I felt bitter for myself and sorry for the deceased. I felt guilty of my actions towards my fellow black skin at the expense of the white skin. Such were days when we would kill our brothers and sisters, reckless at the expenses of the Europeans, for their profit and their gains. Praise God of Moses who saved Israelites. He also came down for Africans and saved us from afflictions and oppressions of our enemy. And for that we are now sovereign. We make our own decision and destiny, define our destiny for our nations. And if we curse and rebuke and bury the spirits of corruption within our society, then there comes a time we shall all have equal stomachs across the country. Young and the old, poor and the rich, hustlers and the dynasty shall all eat on one single, equal and sizable plate. That will grow and develop some equal pots across the nation. Those were the days when the whites would urinate on black skin with no consequences of any kind for their evil action, even smear his bad-smelling feces on black skin. These days, with an established International Criminal Court, ICC, we have a place to voice our words, a place to give our grievances, speak our minds, and let our voices be heard before jurisdictions for the peace and the anti-crimes. Our place will be considered for the plight of the crying soul, the voice of the meek and the oppressed persons. Brenda lifted her pin and she brought it down. Safely, she lifted again and brought it down. Again, safely. Again, she tried to continue at her pace, perhaps to catch up with the other women, also tired, exhausted, but stuck on the pin of the jambes. They had been doing the same thing since in the morning. Now that the hot beams of sunlight struck their forehead, warmed up their blood, yet absolutely nothing will be quenched the boiling within their normal human bodies. Someone lost his strength and buckled. Oh, yeah, koye, my koye. Brenda at last blundered into wails, while a stroke of cane ran over her buttocks. I craned myself to observe what happened across the fence to our neighborhood female prison. Don't mind, those are the lazy ones from the other side of the women prison. Mind your own business, bro. Mr. Rodney sparked his venom to me straight onto my cause. More days had gone. Already 3 months had collapsed as I lived in the prison. Nadiaka, in the other end, had already given birth, a baby bouncing boy. I had asked Mr. Rodney and giraffe-naked boy to find a nice place for my wife and the baby. That's when, after a good rapport had developed between me and my friend, the white man, a good personal relation that will welcome someone, especially him, give an ear to me, a less important person. He took her to a Cardinal Tunga missionary center established to educate Catholic Christian values and offered academic lessons as well for the girl child. As for the boys, raised on captulas and they resided on the neighborhood Kibabi school, also to find some lessons. That place sounded an heaven, an oasis for academic for the black region. I was happy for that. Besides the comfort, she could also attend some lessons in the school. What a fortune for her. She found heaven while I was left in the hell. And those days, we never had heard of or known of anything of a girl child rights. Nobody to fight and forget for the girl child. Life had opportunities to be grasped for than fighting for, but again, very few girls were available to take up advantages of that what had been laid before at stake. As we, the boy child, survived by our own strength and energy in our muscles to fight for our space with some little brain in our skulls, then you will hustle your way for a better living. Neleka, my wife, she was able to receive her secondary lessons. The spirit of my forefathers, I had actually protected the blood in my wife's stomach. I also prayed daily for her, to our God Were. I began praying for myself as well, as I wanted some hopes to appear from the horizon, break the concrete walls of the prisons, and wrestle some waters from the walls. Just something like a fresh anointing from heaven. I got hold of my fist and knocked the walls of the prison. If waters of education will actually drip, my strong arms and the anger developed a crack to the deaf ears of the prison walls. Mr. Francis always came on Friday to pray for the prisoners. He prayed for the sick, weak, and the about to succumb so that their souls would go to heaven. He prayed for the strong like me so that we could work extra hard and develop the white government for the white benefit. He also wanted us to avoid evil and follow the teaching of Jesus Christ. I thought it was better he would have traveled down to the village and spoke the same message to Mama Lydia or Koho, our grandmother Anyele. No, she is known for her witches in the village. They had practiced evil and round their life, by the look of the eyes. Automatically, some prickling objects are divided and emptied into your stomach. She transferred the vikumba, bones, into your body, a magical way of bewitching her enemies, friends, and the children of the blessed. Most of us in the jail, we were innocent of evil. We were just victims of social injustice, pure culprit for the evils not committed. And those days, we didn't have the poor, innocent, and mistreated. And those days, we didn't have preachers who could see our spiritual realm, justify our innocence, and proclaim for the justice of the poor, innocent, and mistreated. Thank God for the days when a bishop will tell what you have eaten, what you have dressed, and what you ate the other days before. He will tell whom you ate and with whom you ate and rather practiced the evils in the darkness. I mean, he could reveal the nasty things you have been doing. He will as well foresee the days of your tomorrow. He can prophesy your dying days. Bishop Awori mentioned such crucial calamities in our national calendars. One day I waited for him to finish his sermon. Father Francis collected his cassock, left the collar round his neck within a well-knit white shirt. Altar boys went round to collect offerings from the inmates, my fellow prisoners. Could they have hidden some coins altogether with the bedbugs in their dirty captula? Then he thanked God, drank a couple of wine to suppress hunger, and moved on. He found no sadaka in the prison. He will wait upon for God's provision before his next miracle of manna drop again. Then I approached him and spoke my mind. He welcomed my dear with a good, cheerful heart. Maybe he had been waiting to hear of something of my rare case. Someone enthusiastic with the reading Bible pages and the white booklets across the fence in a school, of a few selected fortunes in life, unlike those of us struggling with the fate of life that had been bestowed on our shoulders. Father Francis had been one among the few handful white people who did good things. Now you are talking, my boy. You want to make yourself somebody for the future, huh? That's good of you. Remember, through books, that's the only way to touch on your ultimate goals. Very good of you. Congratulations. I'll see to it that somebody is found from you. You see, all these great leaders of the world were never dropped from heaven. They began from scratch, such a simple journey to climb up to the top. Readers will make to become leaders. He stretched his hand and pat on my back and encouraged me for the bold decision I had made. I was the type of a person who observed things at a different angle. I saw impossible as possible. He also encouraged me. He carried my message and presented to the upper chamber. 3 days later, I received a summon, released unconditionally, and asked to cross over to the other side of the good boys. On a ground of a well-behaved boy, amongst the many crooks, I stood out to be the intelligent than their black minds. With a few tips Hateta had heightened on my brains, I will never live to be a fool. I became clever than all my fellow inmates. I was happy. Education was such a very powerful tool to create porous sport through impermeable membranes. The few studies in my elementary had improved my intellect to understand the need for something extra. That's why a clever boy will see something as he slept, while a fool with his two full open eyes will not be able to see while standing. Ahead in my vision, a brightened future that lied in education, the only key for my success, the foundation of knowledge. That day, I crossed from the jail to school and enrolled for studies at Bungoma High School for my secondary school studies. Already we had 12 boys warming up their white booklets. A boy like Cornelius Lupao memorized all the syllabus and every word in the booklet stuck at the palm of his hand. He hailed from Nahuana, a closer neighbor to my village, Mianga. Also mysterious, found his position in that institution. Sylvester Nyongeza, who had penetrated through the hard times to find his place there, he was a short, tough boy. He had few words in his mouth that he found difficult to speak, but harbored a lot in his brain. In fact, he stammered as he made his assembly speeches, but he led the entire school as the head boy in charge of academics. Sometimes we could not confide our minds to him and give our honest opinions because of the fear that he had overruled our minds. After many traitors had sold our blood brothers to the wise, he was strict, just like the curfew that had reigned the country. Thus, in 1952, an emergency declaration that was called upon the entire country, so that the whole country went in solemnity as the Mau movement kept going about. So we also feared of a repeat of the same episode in our days. Tutors like Mr. Koroko, Mr. Mbuni, Mr. Wachilonga, Mr. Kubai, and Mr. Witozi had been trained and equipped to handle incoming students from the many diverse backgrounds, different homesteads and diverse family histories, the rich and the poor, the comfort and the new the convert for the new religion, and the stubborn who, who had stuck to the Africanism, perhaps practiced superstition, but we all mingle in one social place that we call a school. Such are the days we had a few white religion, and yet some of us stuck to our old beliefs and tradition. Mr. Witosi, our school deputy principal, found it hard to control few disorganized students, especially unknown for their origin, but found to that place under his leadership. He had the mighty finger to point out queer characters suspicious of breaking school laws, many who were found on the wrong side of the school rules, whose steps stood on a wrong foot. I faced a few challenges to mingle with the learned. I fell short of words to thank Father Francis. In jail, I had actually faced harsh and cruelty, grievous treatment that beacon us to ask the inability of our forefathers to protect us from the infirmities that befall on us. But contrary to the jail terms, in school, we were celebrated, treated nicely as heroes of our land. As the school motto suggested, be the light, little did they know that eventually we will become leaders to our nation, and even become clever than the white masters, and even ask them to surrender our land safely back to our hands as they packed their few belongings to fly back to their ancestral homes, back where they came from. After all, nobody had chased them off their continent, yet they scrambled and petitioned for our continent. One big wish in their heart was to dominate African and Africans, taking advantage of our ignorance, lack of knowledge to outweigh their charm. Some came with Bibles in their hands of preaching good news. Thereafter, they drowned the Holy Bible and stood by the sword to protect their ground, guns by their hands as they fought for the African rivals. Time will come indeed for them to depart and remain only with the good-hearted whites, those who meant good for the Africans. Never play with the learned man. He's a superpower in his own shoes. I asked Father Francis to travel down the Myanga and meet my big friend Katete. The only gratitude I will have given back to my village, as pay back to the society and give back to somebody. I knew there was so much he will do for my native home in the village. I let him prepare the way. I will ask him to prepare the way before I come back, fully loaded from my hostile wilderness. I was the Messiah. They ought to wait for me. I will be coming to redeem them of the poverty and the ignorant life they live. I was a son of the chief. I belonged to the monarchy, a royal family to a village, a prince to carry over the mantle of my aging father and lead everyone and anyone within our kingship, anybody within the boundaries of my father's chiefdom, all the way from Masielo, Kitabisi, Bitobona Para, Kamurumba, Tabala na Juana Kimwanga, Tulukui, Siombe, Bukirimo, Lelekwe, and Kimaiti send all the 12 locations that belong to the larger Kimaiti division. My father had his assistant chiefs as designated location. Chief Nauliha stayed at Kimaiti Center and ruled the Upper Napara region. Chief Matayo handled all the serious matters in his docket at the end of the Kimwanga location. Chief Siaf and Singoro had actually had tough times chasing up the drunkards in their dockets, farm disputes and chicken thieves within their lower Kimaiti region, precisely the Tulukui, Siombe, Leleko and Bukirimo villages. Regardless of his or his social status, I will be equipped to lead them, especially the springing up generations of our days that needed advice and directions, to lead them and make them live to the current life. I will sit with elders such the paramount chiefs and community stakeholders as I drew wisdom from them. They were the custodians of our custom and laws that govern the tradition of our land, and thus their words were as important as the decision to be made. But I will also challenge them, though I will give them some assignment as well, some homework to ponder about and understand the need to impress the changing norms. Such will be a moment when I speak, they will also listen to my voice and heed unto my new directive, a soft-spoken voice with plenty of new ideas for the current norms. That small voice will give commands to strong and mighty giants under my feet, probably the empty-handed. I was in the wilderness preparing for the tough challenge ahead. Such were the days we were Selfless and consider communal interests first, not our personal interests at first. Projects that benefit the society rather than benefit our pockets alone. I had my community at heart, and thus I advocated better proposal that benefit the whole community. And like some days to come, one single person, one single place of work become infested with either one tribe, a clan, or a family. Nepotism of the highest order, such that a government parastatal can be controlled and run like a family business, one hand pulling the other similar hand, or a similar and close hand, perhaps a relative. Ukona nani bwana? That will be the first question you ought to prepare adequately to answer on your interview. A questionnaire that has got demands for a working person, a good resume to appeal the panel. Yet you, being a new recruit to the world, searching for a job, you will find it difficult to raise such amount of figures. Like for example, my neighbor who went ahead and sold a piece of his farm, only to be let down and lost that much. He never found a job. He also lost his residential farm. Look at the way I had walked through my way. No one had picked me from the village and placed me, my striving soul, to a green pasture. I hustled all through my way and found this place. I like the children of these days, a cabinet secretary or a daughter will be married off to the son of his colleague, also rich and holding a big public portfolio. Therefore, assigning duties to a young, immature toddler to run a government business, immature parents, children who can't afford to endure the pain of one day hunger, and yet entrusted to run a big government offices. They will live such a lazy and luxurious life, drinking all together their salary and that of their official working funds, the government funds, forgetting the pain and the anguish of the poor and a privileged citizen waiting upon the government services. And those are the rats Khatete talked about, the rich rats that can't prepare anything good and place on the table. They will feast on everything at their disposal, even the huge chunks of rotten food, that is, the rotten blessings from the government tenders, at the expenses of the ordinary mwananchi, the citizen. Our only machine, the Mumias Sugar Factory, for example, actually collapsed from such close of an inconsiderate manager, Mr. Kidero. A government official led his team that looted to bring down a vibrant, energetic company that behold the livelihood of the so many Bukusu people. He brought down Mumias Sugar Factory to its knees. Somebody ought to cushion it from totally collapsing. Already rusting machine, stagnant tractors, and the silence of a noisy machine suggested something strange. A looming total close down of the factory. Our president, Mr. Huru, actually came and deposited some 2 billion shillings to help bring it up to function again. Such was a drop in the ocean compared to the many debts the company had incurred to the farmers, to the workers, and to the company bills. Many more malpractices in our government institutions suggested immature toddlers running heavy weights of the government offices, government tenders with exorbitant prices, poor procurement procedures, and selective decisions that denied underprivileged to do business with the government. He is not our own. Terms used to describe new entrant in the government business, denying someone an opportunity to win a tender. Thanks to God for the forthcoming days, we will have institutions that can monitor and apprehend such criminal rights that had propagated atrocities in whatever official duty they were assigned and designated to perform. While corruption team organized public crusades and drummed up the messages against corruption, preaching against such evils, prosecutors busy perused the files of suspicious characters and brought forth the culprits into book for questioning, interrogation, and apprehension. Later, they will be arraigned in court to answer charges against them. They must answer to the political, economic, and social crimes before them. More measures will put up austerity measures to combat such devices. Our police officers will be left with petty and a very simple task to perform: to mingle well with the citizen, handle such petty cases like chicken, tax, try to cement broken love affairs for the wrongfully couples, or for instance, a man had been denied his conjugal rights. Such will be a simple duty for our police officers to handle. They will settle in the market. They will likely settle market quarrels and disagreement, as well as settle family disputes. Excess alcohol drinkers will find themselves in those hands of our able police officers, while the drunk drivers will break our traffic rules, putting our traveling safety at bay. Definitely they will be found on their hands. They will be on the wrong side of the law. Very sharp laws that breaks heavy logs to and from. The government agencies will note them down, nail them, and bring them forth for questioning. So very easily our police officers will detect such reckless drunk drivers with the current sophisticated alcohol machines. Many of them will be nailed down and be brought further into our cause. Our government do have enough speedometers to keep our officers vigilant for the speed. Fix your car well with speed governor to be able to manage your driving speed. That will make cautious as you make your ride within ourselves. Have a limited riding at comfort without hurry. That has no blessings. For instance, do not slash any woman before you. Limit yourself with one or two within your bosom. That is to stop endanger yourself with many STDs around within our souls. We were many of us from different places with different languages. Odinga, our senior boy, patroned our academic program. He taught our Bungoma school very often and gave us much more of his experience from the region. He passed well in Maseno school, therefore asked to come over for this region and practically shared with us his rich knowledge. I sat in class and observed democracy spelled on his lips. He talked much of his own experience and lessons learned from the Lake region. As you know, this particular boy was big-headed. He had a wide range of knowledge, ideas, and information in his brain. For instance, he had traveled and lived in Russia, observed paramilitary training for the whites, and acquainted himself with a wide range of political experience. Very contrary to our Luya boys, though we were bright and good at bookworming, we had very little knowledge. Onto what it takes to marshal our political circumference. Odinga gave more insight of fishy government approaches. Public land grabbed our Webuye and paper auction for some pianos. The company that held a big farm and multitude of plots in the expensive land of the capital center had been put to sell onto a private farm, just a small fee. I mean, government's properties worth billions had to be auctioned for 800 million. A crapper also was in our class, a Teso boy who sat behind in a class in a dark corner. He came from the Amkura school, the Teso South. He was black, dark-skinned. Sometimes our teacher will not teach. Sometimes our teacher will actually teach a whole lesson and leave the class without noticing him. We also had a Shula who came from Batura Gland. He felt he was marginalized, so he sat in the middle of the class and did weird things to be noticed. Anything to make his presence also be felt and acknowledged. He could do anything possible to be recognized. All the time we smelled the oxygenated gas. We had no doubt he had but something below somewhere in the rectum. He had released, especially on the Wednesday, we had maboni for our lunch, maboni and cassava potatoes for our lunchtime meal. He practiced diffusion, one of the biological terms he liked to describe and revise at all times. We had the biology lessons. He made us to understand the movement of particles from the higher concentration to the lower concentration. Wamala was a small, bright boy. He competed well with the Muliro, the son of Makinia. Wamala hailed from the slopes of Cherangany, and like Muliro, Wamala smiled a lot. Even to the young children, he will smile back at them. Muliro was rough, smiled to himself only after achieving something for himself, something burning in his heart. After solving something very difficult or something very essential in his dear life to him, that's when he will smile. Muliro would keep silent but calculate an arithmetic and find the correct answer. He also had an absurd language. Umalo, on the other hand, had managed to master a white dictionary and interjected enough vocabulary to emulate our Mzungu, the white man, talks. He tongue-twisted his lips and left his voice come through the nose as he passed his words. A great orator in our class of our future leaders. His eloquence earned him much respect and admiration. Kiptime also came from the slope of Mount Elgon, given that the Dorobos had genes of their ancestors from the way back from the Nilos. Then Kiptime became happened to be the nephew to the Koitalea Arab somewhere for the landing. He was good at eating and running, but also poor to speak to. Something for himself, very poor, speechless indeed, that he had ladies around him and failed to coin one for himself. He had few words that stuck on his lips and confessed to himself at all the time he licked his lips. I've killed another one. My stick had not killed anything for some time. Cheers and applause rained into air while he sprang to his toes and gave us cheers to any stray delicacy such as hare passing by our school compound. Some, a good sizable number of colleagues, students cheered him up as he made the trap. They knew for sure he wouldn't miss, and that meant a nice meal for him and his friends in that evening. He spared nothing edible in his vicinity that could offer something delicious for the evening meat. Our school goats became his other delicacy after he had exhausted his wild hunting skills that he developed from the Kalenjin community. We had another colleague from Webuye. Laban had enough accounts in his head. He balanced sheets from his expenditure and saved something in his account. He sorted me out few coins anytime I felt trouble inside my empty stomach, so that I paid homage to our school canteen. Some coin that made me visit our school canteen and buy something for myself before our school meals were served to the 10 dining table. Such was not an easy way to get service at the school canteen, yet even if you had what it takes to buy yourself something, that's some coins. That's if you have some coins to buy some juices, half loaf of bread, or and a kangumo KDF. You had to struggle your way to the counter. We scrammed. A rugby tactic to pave your way for yourself and get some service the school canteen. And even if life thereafter demanded, and if even after that life there even after school demanded for a scrap for any service within the government agencies, you've got to bribe your way to have someone in position, some little incentive or a tip, ya macho bro. The term used to solicit something from your pocket, as it was the culture in Kenya, and everyone understood. Otherwise, never will you be noticed and be served. A little sacrifice did some wonders. Nothing came on a silver plate.